And I think that's something we all share. Mr. Howe, I wanted to start with a question to you. It would be great if we could have a brief update on drug seizures at our land ports of entry along the U.S.-Mexico border. Have we seen an increase in trafficking of any particular narcotic over the past 6 months?
Thank you, Senator, for the question, and thank you for visiting McAllen in May. Our narcotic seizures are on track for to match our numbers from last year. Year to date, we've seized more than 39,000 pounds of methamphetamine, which is tracking a little bit higher than normal. 38,000 pounds of cocaine, 3,200 pounds of heroin, and nearly 2,000 pounds of fentanyl.
And thank you. In particular, have fentanyl seizures increased or decreased over the past 6 months? And what does that tell you about the drug cartel's plans for the trade of fentanyl?
I think we're seeing less through our mail facilities, and it's trending up slightly on the southern border with the fentanyl.
Right. And of course, while the size of the seizures of fentanyl that you just recounted sounds smaller than the other drugs, 2,000 pounds of fentanyl is an awful lot of fentanyl, given its lethality.
Absolutely.
Mr. Hastings, how do Border Patrol's drug seizure numbers compare with CBP's seizures at ports of entry?
Thank you for the question. So we have noticed the hard narcotics generally trending up, and by what I mean specifically, cocaine seizures are up, methamphetamine seizures are up, and heroin seizures are up. Cocaine, about 97,000 pounds cocaine seized so far this fiscal year between the ports of entry. About 9,800 pounds of methamphetamine seized between the ports of entry. Heroin, 448 pounds of heroin seized so far between the ports of entry. Marijuana is slightly down at about 200,000 pounds. And fentanyl, although down a little bit at 149 pounds, still obviously very highly concerning.
Well, thank you for the information. Mr. Hastings, I want to turn to another topic. I understand very clearly from my visits to the border, the one I just did with Senators Johnson and Peter and the one I did last year, that we are facing a humanitarian and security crisis along the southwestern border. And I agree with you that we need comprehensive immigration reform in order to help relieve some of the flow of migrants into the United States. However, there is absolutely no excuse for the reported conditions at Border Patrol facilities that house child migrants. Outside lawyers recently visited a Border Patrol facility in Clint, Texas, where they reported widespread instances of children living in squalor, being denied the ability to shower for weeks at a time, caring for infants just a few years younger than themselves, and being locked in cages for the vast majority of the day. Similar reports of gross mismanagement and horrible conditions have come to light at the Border Patrol facilities at McAllen and El Paso, as well as a private facility in Homestead, Florida. I truly understand how overwhelmed Border Patrol is. I think you've done a very good job of highlighting it in your testimony. I certainly saw a great deal of it when I was down at the border just last month. I also understand that CBP needs funding to address this crisis. Hopefully, we will be able to take action here in the Senate on an emergency aid package in the coming days. However, when dealing with children, your first and foremost priority is to ensure that the children in the federal government's custody are treated with the same kind of care, dignity, and support that we would want and expect for any child. To that end, Mr. Hastings, I would like a very clear answer on these questions. First, does CBP have an obligation to provide toothpaste and soap to children in your custody? Yes or no?
We're providing that in El Paso, in Clint Station.
The news reports say otherwise, but you now say you do have an obligation to do that.
We have been at the Clint Station, and generally all of our stations across the southwest border are provided with a variety of hygiene products. And even though our facilities were not constructed for the demographic,
I understand that, and my time is limited, so I'm going to cut. I do understand that you are dealing with difficult facilities. I do understand that there is a backup with HHS, which I think HHS could do more to solve. But at the end of the day, what I'm hearing you say is that you agree that children should be provided soap and toothbrush if they are in your custody, which is a different position than what the administration has been saying in court.
We are providing those things now. We have been and we will continue to.
Do you have an obligation to feed, clothe, and clean the children in your custody?
We provide 3 meals, hot meals a day, and snacks are unlimited to those in our
You do understand that that is in direct contradiction with the news reports that we have been reading and from what lawyers who have been visiting these children and interviewing them are telling us.
And I would ask that you understand that those are the plaintiff's attorneys who have a case against the government.
And you should understand that I'm a member of the Bar of Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and I hold attorneys to very high standards, and I doubt very strongly that any attorney would be fabricating this information.
Understand, ma'am.
What steps is the Border Patrol taking right now to ensure that the mismanagement of child migrants in Clint, Texas is not occurring at every other Border Patrol facility along the southern border?
So all of the allegations that you've mentioned above that were made have all been reported to the Office of the Inspector General and will be thoroughly investigated. They've also been reported to the Office of Professional Responsibility within CBP. They will be thoroughly investigated.
I'm pleased that they will be investigated, but my question is, what are you actually doing to make sure that as you are dealing with an unprecedented number of migrant children, that you are ensuring that there is enough soap and toothbrushes, that there is enough food and enough time for them to be outside and out of very confined spaces? What I'm asking is, what are you operationally doing to change the circumstances? We are hearing reports not just from one facility, not just from 2 facilities, not just from one source, that these children are living in terrible conditions that would violate any standard of any institution that we all would expect in this country. What are you doing to actually make sure that children are getting the care and the sanitary conditions and the food that they need?
So we have done a great deal. As I mentioned earlier, we have brought in shower facilities just for this population, for others, due to the new demographic and how long we're holding them. We've increased our medical contract across the southwest border for medical assessments and medical care. We've increased, as I mentioned in my oral statement, the amount of operational funding that we're spending on consumables, diapers, food, formula, all of those things. If you walk into many of our locations on the southwest border, including Clint, you will see an area, a storeroom that frankly looks like Costco with these supplies that are available. And when agents are providing these supplies, they're documenting what they're providing. So we have those supplies readily available, and we are offering and providing those supplies now.
I am over time. I thank the chairman for his indulgence. There is a huge disconnect between your testimony and between what we are getting as reports from the facilities. I hope very much that we can just focus on making sure the children are clean, well cared for, safe, and released as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Senator Hassan,